She was cleaning tables. Then a CEO overheard her singing and changed her life. The fluorescent lights of Rosie's diner flickered against the rain-streaked windows as Maya Thompson wiped down the last sticky table of her 12-hour shift. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers and her back screamed from bending over countless times to scrub away the remnants of other people's meals. It was nearly midnight on a Tuesday, and the diner was almost empty except for a lone man in an expensive suit sitting in the corner booth, his untouched coffee growing cold as he stared at his laptop screen. Maya didn't pay him much attention. Rich folks sometimes stopped here when the highway traffic got too bad, killing time until the roads cleared. She had learned long ago not to hope for big tips from people who wore watches worth more than her yearly rent. As she moved between tables with her cleaning bucket, something inside her chest felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on her dreams that grew heavier with each passing day. Maya began humming softly as she worked, the melody flowing from somewhere deep within her soul, where she kept all the songs her grandmother had taught her before she passed away 3 years ago. The tune transformed into quiet words, barely above a whisper at first, then growing slightly louder as she lost herself in the music. When the morning comes too soon, and the stars forget to shine, I'll remember every moment. When your heart was close to mine, she sang, her voice carrying a raw honesty that came from years of holding back tears while smiling at difficult customers. She didn't notice when the man in the corner booth slowly closed his laptop and turned his full attention to her. She didn't see how his eyes widened with each note she hit, or how he pulled out his phone to record her voice. Maya was somewhere else entirely. She was 8 years old again, sitting on her grandmother's porch in Alabama, learning about the power of music to heal broken hearts and tired souls. The mop in her hand became lighter, the ache in her feet disappeared, and for those precious few minutes, she wasn't a struggling waitress in a dead-end job, but a vessel for something beautiful and pure. The song ended as Maya reached the corner booth, and she suddenly became aware of the man watching her intently. Her face flushed with embarrassment as she realized he had heard everything. "I'm so sorry, sir," she stammered, clutching her cleaning rag tightly. "I didn't mean to disturb your work. Sometimes I forget myself when it's late and I'm tired. Please don't tell my manager. I really need this job." Her hands trembled slightly as she waited for the complaint she was sure would come. She had been written up twice already this month for small mistakes, and her manager, Frank, had made it clear that one more complaint would mean she was out. The man stood up slowly, and Maya noticed for the first time how tall he was, how his suit fit perfectly, and how his eyes held a kindness she hadn't expected. He reached into his jacket pocket, and Maya's heart sank, thinking he was about to pull out his phone to call Frank right then and there. Instead, he pulled out a business card and held it out to her with a gentle smile. "My name is James Chen," he said, his voice warm and sincere. "I'm the CEO of Harmony Records, and I've been in the music business for 25 years. In all that time, I've never heard a voice quite like yours, so honest, so full of pain and hope mixed together. That wasn't just singing. That was storytelling with your soul." Maya stared at the card in disbelief, her mind struggling to process what was happening. This had to be some kind of joke or scam. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. "Sir, I don't understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible. James sat back down and gestured for her to sit across from him. "I'm going to be direct with you because I sense you're someone who values honesty," he said. "You don't belong here cleaning tables. You belong on stage, sharing that gift with the world. Come to my office tomorrow at noon. Bring whatever original songs you have, or even just your voice. Let me help you become who you were meant to be." Maya's legs felt weak as she sank into the booth across from him, still clutching the business card like it might disappear if she let go. "Mr. Chen, I appreciate this, but I'm nobody special. I'm just a girl from Alabama who moved to Los Angeles 5 years ago with big dreams that went nowhere. I've been rejected by every talent agency, every record label, every singing competition I've tried. They all said the same thing. My voice is too raw, too unpolished, too different." Tears began forming in her eyes as years of disappointment threatened to overflow. "I work 16-hour days between this job and cleaning offices at night just to afford a tiny apartment I share with 3 roommates." I haven't written a song in 2 years because every time I try, I remember all the people who told me I wasn't good enough." James leaned forward, his expression serious but compassionate. "Maya, may I call you Maya? The music industry is full of people looking for the next carbon copy of whatever is popular right now. But every once in a while, someone comes along who reminds us why music matters in the first place. Your voice isn't too raw. It's authentic. It's not unpolished. It's real. And it's definitely different. But that's exactly what the world needs right now." He pulled out his phone and showed her a video he had just recorded of her singing. Maya watched herself on the screen, shocked by what she saw and heard. The woman in the video wasn't the tired waitress she saw in the mirror every morning. She was transformed, glowing with an inner light that seemed to radiate through the screen. "This is what I heard tonight," James said softly. "This is what stopped me in the middle of reviewing quarterly reports and made me forget everything except the need to listen. Do you know how rare that is? I get sent hundreds of demo recordings every week from professionally trained singers with perfect technique, and none of them have made me feel what I felt listening to you sing while mopping floors." He stood up and placed a $100 bill on the table for his coffee. "I'm not offering you a guarantee of fame or fortune," he said honestly. "What I'm offering is a real chance to see if your voice can touch others the way it touched me tonight. Come tomorrow. If nothing else, you'll know you tried one more time." After James left, Maya stood frozen in the empty diner, staring at the business card that read James Chen, CEO, Harmony Records, with an address in downtown Los Angeles. Her mind raced with possibilities and fears battling for control. What if this was real? What if tomorrow changed everything? But also, what if she showed up and they laughed at her? What if James realized in the harsh light of day that he had made a mistake? She thought about calling her mother back in Alabama, but it was already past 2 in the morning there. Her mother had stopped asking about her music dreams years ago, probably tired of hearing the disappointment in Maya's voice every time she had to report another rejection. Maya finished cleaning the diner in a daze, her movements automatic while her thoughts spun in circles. Frank came out of his office as she was putting away the cleaning supplies. "You okay, Thompson? You look like you've seen a ghost," he grunted. Maya just nodded, not trusting herself to speak. If she told Frank about what had just happened, he would probably laugh and tell her not to be so gullible. Or worse, he might get angry that she had been singing on the job and fire her on the spot. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay on her narrow bed in the room she shared with another roommate, staring at the water-stained ceiling and replaying every word James had said. At 3 in the morning, she quietly got up and went to her closet, pushing aside her work uniforms to reach a dusty box in the back. Inside were notebooks filled with songs she had written over the years. Songs about heartbreak, about missing home, about dreams deferred, about finding hope in unexpected places. She hadn't looked at them in so long, afraid that seeing them would hurt too much. But now she pulled them out one by one, reading her own words by the light of her phone. Some of them were terrible, the work of a younger version of herself who thought pain had to be dramatic to be valid. But others were good, really good. They captured feelings she had forgotten she knew how to express, painted pictures with words that even now, years later, made her chest tight with emotion. She selected 5 of the best ones and put them in a folder, then spent the next 2 hours practicing them quietly, remembering the melodies she had created when hope still lived in her heart without paying rent. Morning came too quickly, and Maya called in sick to both her jobs for the first time in over a year. She stood in front of her meager closet, agonizing over what to wear. Everything she owned was either a uniform or casual clothes suitable for cleaning. Finally, she settled on the one nice outfit she had kept from better times. A simple black dress and a cardigan her grandmother had knitted for her before she died. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her eyes, usually dull with exhaustion, held a spark of something she had thought was dead forever. She took 3 buses to get to downtown Los Angeles, the folder of songs clutched tightly against her chest. The building where Harmony Records was located was all glass and steel, reaching toward the sky like it was trying to touch the clouds. Maya stood outside for 10 minutes, watching people in expensive clothes stride confidently through the revolving doors. She almost turned around twice, convinced this was all a mistake. But then she remembered her grandmother's words. Baby girl, fear is just your soul's way of telling you something important is about to happen. Don't run from it. Dance with it instead. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt like ascending to another world. When the doors opened, Maya stepped into a reception area that looked like something from a movie. Platinum records on the walls, leather furniture that probably cost more than she made in a year, and a receptionist who looked like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. I have an appointment with Mr. Chen, Maya said, her voice smaller than she intended. The receptionist looked skeptical but checked her computer. Her expression changed to surprise. Miss Thompson? Yes, Mr. Chen is expecting you. He cleared his entire afternoon schedule. Please, follow me. Maya's heart pounded as she was led down a hallway lined with photos of famous artists, many of whom she had grown up listening to on the radio. The receptionist knocked on a door at the end of the hall, then opened it to reveal a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. James stood up from behind his desk, smiling warmly. Maya, I'm so glad you came. I was worried you might think I was some crazy person making promises I couldn't keep. He gestured to a comfortable-looking couch area where a piano sat in the corner. Please, sit wherever you feel comfortable. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? Something to eat? Maya shook her head, too nervous to trust her stomach with anything. I brought some songs I wrote, she said, holding up the folder. They're not professionally produced or anything. Just words and melodies I created over the years. James took the folder and spent the next 30 minutes reading through her songs carefully, occasionally humming to himself or making notes in the margins. Maya watched anxiously, trying to read his expression. Finally, he looked up with excitement in his eyes. These are extraordinary, he said. The one about saying goodbye to your grandmother. Silver threads and golden memories. It's heartbreaking and beautiful. Would you sing it for me? Maya's hands trembled as she stood and walked to the center of the room. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to sing. The song poured out of her like water breaking through a dam, years of grief and love and memory flowing through every note. She sang about her grandmother's hands, worn from decades of hard work but gentle when they braided her hair. She sang about the stories told on summer evenings, about wisdom passed down through generations, about the last words spoken before the light faded from those beloved eyes. When she finished, she opened her eyes to find James wiping away tears. That was Maya. That was one of the most moving performances I've ever witnessed, he said, his voice thick with emotion. The way you transport the listener into your world, make them feel what you feel. It's a gift that can't be taught. It has to be lived, and you've clearly lived every word of these songs. Over the next 3 hours, James had Maya sing each of her 5 songs, then asked her to try some classic covers to test her range and versatility. With each performance, his excitement grew more visible. He called in his head of A&R, a woman named Patricia who had discovered several Grammy-winning artists. Patricia listened to Maya sing Silver Threads and Golden Memories and immediately grabbed James's arm. Where did you find her? She whispered urgently. We need to sign her today, right now, before someone else hears her and steals her away. Maya could hardly believe what she was hearing. These people who worked with superstars every day were talking about her like she was something special. James called in his legal team, and within 2 hours, they had drawn up a recording contract. It wasn't a massive deal, James was honest about that, but it was fair, with provisions for artistic control and a budget for her first album that would allow her to work with real producers and musicians. I want to be clear about something, James said as Maya held the contract with shaking hands. This is just the beginning. You're going to have to work harder than you've ever worked before, but it will be different because you'll be working on your music, on your dream. There will be long days in the studio, media training, voice coaching to protect your vocal cords, performance preparation. The music industry is tough, and not everyone who deserves success achieves it. But I believe in you, Maya. I believe you have something the world needs to hear. Maya signed the contract with tears streaming down her face, thinking of all the nights she had cried herself to sleep, believing her dreams were dead. "Can I ask you something?" she said to James. "Why were you in that diner? It's not exactly the kind of place someone like you would normally go." James smiled. "My father used to own that diner 40 years ago before he saved enough money to put me through college. I go there once a month to remember where I came from, to stay grounded. Last night I was feeling discouraged about the state of music today. Everything feels so manufactured, so artificial. I was actually thinking about retiring early. Then I heard you sing, and it reminded me why I got into this business in the first place. You didn't just change your life last night, Maya. You changed mine, too." The next year passed in a whirlwind of experiences Maya could never have imagined. She spent countless hours in the studio, working with producers who helped her maintain the raw authenticity of her voice while adding musical arrangements that enhanced rather than overshadowed her natural gift. The first single they released was Silver Threads and Golden Memories, and James made sure it was marketed not as a pop song but as a piece of musical storytelling. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The song went viral on social media, with millions of people sharing their own stories of loved ones they had lost. Maya received thousands of messages from listeners telling her how the song had helped them grieve, had given them permission to feel their pain while celebrating the love that caused it. Radio stations that usually played only upbeat hits began requesting the song, and within 3 months it had climbed to the top 10 on multiple charts. But success wasn't without its challenges. Maya struggled with the sudden attention, the criticism that came with visibility, and the pressure to follow up her first hit with something equally powerful. There were days when she missed the simplicity of her old life, when being anonymous meant she could make mistakes without the whole world watching. She had to learn to navigate interviews where journalists wanted to reduce her to a simple rags-to-riches story, missing the years of dedication and pain that had shaped her artistry. She had to deal with old friends who suddenly reappeared, some genuinely happy for her but others clearly wanting something. The hardest part was when her father, who had left when she was 10 and hadn't contacted her since, suddenly showed up claiming he had always believed in her talent. James remained a steady presence throughout it all, not just as her label CEO but as a mentor and friend. He taught her about the business side of music, ensuring she understood her contracts and royalties, helping her build a team of people who genuinely cared about her career rather than just their commission. Patricia became like an older sister, guiding her through the treacherous waters of industry politics and helping her stay true to herself when everyone else wanted to change her. 6 months after signing with Harmony Records, Maya was invited to perform at the Grammy Awards, not as a nominee yet, but as part of a special segment honoring breakthrough artists. Standing on that stage, looking out at an audience filled with artists she had idolized, Maya felt the full weight of how far she had come. The performance was electric. Maya sang a new song she had written called Midnight Shift, about her time working at the diner, about all the people like her who were one moment away from their lives changing. The cameras captured tears on the faces of several celebrity audience members, and by the time she hit the final note, the entire auditorium was on its feet. The standing ovation lasted for 3 minutes, and afterward, established stars lined up to meet her, to tell her how moved they were by her authenticity. But the moment that meant the most to Maya came later that night when she called her mother in Alabama. "Baby, I watched you on TV," her mother sobbed. "The whole neighborhood came over. Mrs. Johnson from next door said she always knew you were special. I'm so proud of you, Maya. Your grandmother would be over the moon." A year to the day after James had walked into Rosie's diner, Maya stood on the stage of the Hollywood Bowl, preparing for her first headlining concert. The venue was sold out, 20,000 people who had bought tickets to hear her sing. As she waited in the wings, she thought about all the time she had cleaned up after other people's dreams while putting her own on hold. She thought about the rejections, the closed doors, the voices that told her she wasn't good enough. But mostly, she thought about that night when she was just cleaning tables, singing to herself in an almost empty diner, unaware that her life was about to change forever. James stood beside her, having come to watch her triumph. "Nervous?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "No, I've been preparing for this my whole life." I just didn't know it. As she walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, Maya saw a sea of lights. Phone flashlights held up by people who had found something in her music that spoke to them. She approached the microphone and felt the familiar comfort of being exactly where she belonged. A year ago, I was cleaning tables at a diner, thinking my dreams were dead, she told the crowd, her voice carrying clear and strong through the night air. But someone heard me singing when I thought no one was listening. He told me I didn't belong there. I belonged here, with all of you. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who's ever been told they're not enough, everyone who's worked jobs that killed their soul while keeping their dreams alive in secret. Tonight, I want you to know that someone is always listening. Your moment is coming. Don't stop singing. The concert was a triumph, with Maya performing songs from her debut album, each one telling a different chapter of her story and the stories of people she had met along the way. There was a song about Maria, a fellow waitress at the diner who was putting herself through nursing school. Another about Tommy, the dishwasher who painted masterpieces on cardboard because he couldn't afford canvas. She sang about her grandmother, about home, about loss and hope, and the courage it takes to keep believing when evidence suggests you shouldn't. Between songs, she told stories that made the audience laugh and cry, creating an intimacy that made 20,000 people feel like they were in her living room. The show ended with Silver Threads and Golden Memories, and as Maya sang the last note, she looked up at the stars barely visible beyond the stage lights and whispered, "This is for you, Grandma." Afterward, at the after-party her label had organized, Maya found herself surrounded by industry executives, other artists, and media personalities all wanting to congratulate her and discuss future collaborations. But she excused herself and walked outside to get some air. She found a quiet spot and called Frank, her old manager at the diner. "I watched it online," he said gruffly, but she could hear the emotion in his voice. "You did good, kid, real good. The new girl I hired can't sing worth a damn while she cleans." They both laughed, and Maya promised to stop by the diner soon, to see everyone and remember where her journey had begun. After hanging up, she stood there in her designer dress and expensive shoes. Still the same girl from Alabama who had learned that dreams don't die, they just sometimes take longer routes than we expect. James found her there, bringing her a glass of water. "You know, most artists would be inside networking, making connections, planning their next move," he said with a smile. "But not you. You're out here checking on people from your past, making sure they know they still matter to you." Maya nodded. "They do matter. Every person who was kind to me when I had nothing. Every person who showed me patience when I was learning. Every customer who smiled even when I got their order wrong. They're all part of this story." She paused, looking at the city lights below. "I received so many messages from people in similar situations to where I was. Waitresses, janitors, retail workers, all with dreams they're afraid to pursue. What do I tell them?" James thought for a moment. "Tell them the truth. That talent alone isn't enough. That luck plays a role. That timing matters. But also tell them that sometimes, when you're just being yourself, doing what you love even when no one's watching, the right person might hear you. Tell them that their art, their passion, their gift matters even if it never makes them famous. You were singing that night in the diner not because you thought it would lead anywhere, but because you couldn't help yourself. That's what made it beautiful. That's what stopped me in my tracks." Maya nodded, understanding the weight of being someone else's hope. "I want to start a foundation," she said suddenly, "for artists working in service industries. Grants to help them record demos, take lessons, whatever they need to keep their dreams alive while they're surviving. Can we do that?" Over the next few months, Maya's career continued to soar. Her album went platinum, she was nominated for 3 Grammy Awards, and she embarked on a national tour that sold out in every city. But alongside her musical success, she launched the Midnight Dreams Foundation, named after the late night hours when dreamers working multiple jobs finally had time for their art. The foundation provided not just financial support but mentorship, connecting struggling artists with established professionals who remembered what it was like to wonder if they would ever make it. Maya personally reviewed applications, looking for that spark of authentic passion rather than polished perfection. The first grant recipient was a security guard named Marcus who wrote poetry that Maya said reminded her of early Langston Hughes. The second was a hotel housekeeper named Elena, whose paintings captured the invisible lives of workers in ways that made gallery owners take notice. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came 6 months later, when Maya returned to Rosie's diner for a surprise performance. She had coordinated with Frank to show up during the late shift, when the place would be quiet enough for something special. She arrived dressed simply, looking much like she had when she worked there, and began cleaning tables just as she had that fateful night. The few customers present didn't recognize her at first. Then she began to sing, the same song she had been singing when James heard her. One by one, customers pulled out their phones, hardly believing what they were witnessing. The video went viral within hours. Grammy nominee returns to diner where she was discovered. Proves she hasn't forgotten her roots. But for Maya, it wasn't about publicity. It was about honoring the place where everything changed. About showing other dreamers working late shifts that their moment could come too. Frank, who had always been tough but fair, stood in the corner with tears in his eyes. After the performance, he hugged Maya for the first time ever. "You know, I always heard you humming while you worked," he admitted. "Sometimes I'd stand in my office and just listen. I should have told you how good you were. I should have encouraged you instead of always telling you to focus on your work." Maya hugged him back. "You gave me a job when I desperately needed one. You never fired me even when I made mistakes. That was encouragement enough." She handed him an envelope. Inside was a check made out to the diner, enough to renovate the entire place and give every current employee a substantial bonus. "This place saved me when I had nowhere else to go," she explained. "Now I want to help it save others." The renovation of Rosie's diner included a small stage in the corner where local artists could perform during evening hours. Maya insisted on one rule. Anyone who worked at the diner could sign up for a slot, no audition required. It became known as a place where dreams and coffee were served with equal importance, where tired workers could share their gifts without judgment. Several artists were discovered there in the months that followed, though none quite as dramatically as Maya. But that was okay. Not every story needs to shake the world. Sometimes it's enough to shake one person's world, to give them the courage to keep going when giving up seems like the only rational choice. As Maya's fame grew, she never forgot the lesson of that night. In interviews, she always emphasized that she hadn't been trying to be discovered when James heard her. She had been singing because music lived in her bones, because even at her lowest point, she couldn't stop the melodies from flowing. "That's the secret," she would tell young artists. "Don't perform for the chance of discovery. Perform because you can't imagine doing anything else. Let your art be honest. Let it be real. Let it come from the deepest parts of who you are. The right people will hear it. They might be in a corner booth when you least expect it, or they might be in your heart, reminding you that your gift matters even if the world never knows your name." 2 years after that night at the diner, Maya stood on the Grammy stage again, this time as a winner. As she held the golden gramophone, she thought about all the people who had been part of her journey. Her grandmother, whose songs had planted the seeds of music in her heart. Her mother, who had worked 3 jobs to buy her a second-hand guitar when she was 13. Frank, who had unknowingly provided the stage for her discovery. Her colleagues at both her jobs who had covered for her when she was too tired to function properly because she had been up all night writing songs. And James, who had seen past the exhausted waitress to the artist within. "This award belongs to everyone who works the midnight shift," Maya said into the microphone, her voice carrying across the auditorium and through television screens into millions of homes. "To everyone who cleans offices while composing symphonies in their head. To everyone who serves coffee while serving up their dreams on the side. To everyone who has been told their voice is too different, too raw, too much or not enough. Keep singing, keep creating, keep believing. Your art matters. Your story matters. And sometimes, when you're just being yourself, magic happens." The camera panned across the audience, capturing tears on familiar faces, but also focusing on the workers behind the scenes. The stagehands, the security guards, the cleaning crew who had paused to listen. Maya saw them and smiled, knowing that among them might be the next person whose life would change when someone truly listened. Years later, when Maya had become an established star with multiple albums and awards, she still returned to Rosie's Diner regularly. Not for publicity, but to remember. She would sit in the corner booth where James had sat, drinking coffee and listening to whoever was performing on the small stage. Sometimes she recognized that spark, that special something that transcended technique and touched the soul. When she did, she would quietly leave her card just as James had done for her. But more often, she simply listened, appreciating the courage it took to share one's art in a world that often seemed too busy to notice. She understood now that success wasn't just about talent or luck or timing. It was about persistence, about continuing to sing even when the audience was just empty tables and flickering fluorescent lights. The documentary about Maya's journey, titled She Was Cleaning Tables, Then a CEO Overheard Her Singing and Changed Her Life, premiered 5 years after that fateful night. It featured interviews with everyone from James to Frank to the customers who had been in the diner that night. But the most powerful moments were the stories of other artists who had been inspired by Maya's journey to keep pursuing their dreams. There was the subway musician who had been ready to sell his violin until he heard Maya's story. The nursing home worker who started sharing her poetry at open mics. The accountant who finally admitted to his family that he wanted to dance professionally. Each story was different, but they all shared a common thread, the belief that if Maya could go from cleaning tables to selling out stadiums, then maybe, just maybe, their dreams weren't foolish after all. At the premiere, Maya sat between her mother and James, watching her life play out on screen. When it reached the scene of her singing in the diner, recreated with actors but using her original recording from James's phone, she found herself crying. Not from sadness, but from gratitude for every moment that had led to that night. Every rejection that had taught her resilience, every hard shift that had taught her discipline, every moment of doubt that had taught her the value of faith. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't gone to the diner that night? James whispered. Maya shook her head. No, because I believe that when something is meant to be, the universe finds a way. If it wasn't you that night, it would have been someone else another night. The song was ready to be sung. I just needed someone ready to listen. The impact of Maya's story rippled far beyond the music industry. Companies began implementing programs to identify and nurture talent within their workforce, understanding that potential could be hiding in unexpected places. Music schools started offering scholarships specifically for working adults who couldn't afford traditional education paths. The phrase, the Maya Thompson effect, became shorthand for recognizing and elevating hidden talent. But Maya herself remained focused on the individual level, on the one-to-one connections that had changed her life. She personally mentored dozens of artists, always emphasizing authenticity over perfection, story over technique, heart over polish. 10 years after that night at Rosie's Diner, Maya had accomplished more than she had ever dreamed possible. She had won multiple Grammys, performed at the Super Bowl, collaborated with legends she had grown up idolizing, and sold millions of albums worldwide. But when asked about her proudest achievement, she always pointed to the Midnight Dreams Foundation, which had by then helped launch the careers of over 200 artists from service industry backgrounds. The foundation didn't just provide financial support. It created a community of dreamers who understood the unique challenges of pursuing art while working multiple jobs to survive. They supported each other through the tough times, celebrated each other's victories, and proved that talent wasn't confined to those with the privilege of pursuing it full-time. The anniversary concert at the Hollywood Bowl was marketed as a celebration of Maya's decade-long journey from diner to superstardom. But Maya had different plans. Instead of making it solely about herself, she turned it into a showcase for Midnight Dreams Foundation artists. The show opened with Marcus, the former security guard, now a published poet and spoken-word artist, performing a piece about the dignity of night shift workers. Elena, the former hotel housekeeper, had her paintings displayed throughout the venue, each one sold to benefit the foundation. Throughout the night, established stars joined emerging artists on stage, creating collaborations that would have seemed impossible just years before. Maya performed too, of course, but always in service of highlighting others, harmonizing with their voices rather than overshadowing them. The climax of the evening came when Maya brought James on stage. The audience erupted in appreciation for the man whose decision to stop and listen had started it all. "People always thank me for discovering Maya," James said, his voice emotional. "But the truth is, Maya discovered herself long before I showed up. She was already an artist. I just had the privilege of being the first person in a position to do something about it. The real hero of this story isn't me. It's every person who keeps creating art even when the world isn't watching. Everyone who refuses to let their circumstances define their potential." He turned to Maya. "You've taught me that talent is everywhere. We just need to learn to listen better." Together, they announced a new initiative. Harmony Records would partner with the Midnight Dreams Foundation to create a talent scouting program focused exclusively on finding artists in unconventional places, as the concert ended with Maya singing "Silver, Threads and Golden Memories," joined by a chorus. Of all the performers from that night, the camera captured something beautiful. In the audience were hundreds of workers still in their uniforms. Nurses who had come straight from hospitals, servers still wearing their aprons, janitors who would go to work after the show. They sang along, their voices joining Maya's, creating a harmony that spoke to shared experiences and mutual understanding. This wasn't just a concert. It was a recognition that art belonged to everyone, that beauty could emerge from the most unexpected places, that sometimes the most profound moments happened when someone was just doing their job, unaware that their life was about to change forever. The story could have ended there, with triumph and success and dreams achieved. But life, Maya had learned, was never that neat. There were still hard days, still moments of doubt, still times when she wondered if she was doing enough with the platform she had been given. She dealt with the pressure of being a symbol, of carrying not just her own dreams but the dreams of countless others who saw themselves in her story. She navigated the complexities of fame while trying to stay connected to the truth that had made her art resonate in the first place. She learned that success brought its own challenges. The difficulty of maintaining authenticity when everyone wanted to package and market you, the strain of being away from family for months at a time, the weight of knowing that her decisions affected not just her, but the many people who now depended on her career for their livelihoods. But through it all, Maya held on to the lesson of that night at the diner. She continued to find music in unexpected moments, to sing when she thought no one was listening, to clean tables, metaphorically now, with the same dedication she brought to sold-out stadiums. She understood that the girl cleaning tables and the woman winning Grammys were the same person, that success hadn't changed who she was but had simply given her a bigger platform to be herself. When young artists asked her for advice, she always said the same thing. Don't wait for permission to be who you are. Don't wait for discovery to start creating. Sing while you clean tables, dance while you stock shelves, write while you wait for the bus. Art isn't something you do when you've made it. It's something you do because you can't help yourself. The rest is just details. The Rosie's diner booth where James had sat that night was eventually bronzed and turned into a monument to dreams discovered in unexpected places. But Maya insisted it remained functional, that people could still sit there, drink coffee, and listen to whoever was performing. She liked the idea that someone else might sit in that exact spot and recognize genius in an unlikely place. The diner became a pilgrimage site for struggling artists, a reminder that breakthrough moments could. The diner became a pilgrimage site for struggling artists, a reminder that breakthrough moments could happen anywhere, at any time, to anyone who kept faith in their gift. Tour buses started stopping there, with guides telling Maya's story while customers ate pie and watched whoever was brave enough to take the small stage. But Maya made sure it remained, first and foremost, a working diner where real people came for affordable meals and honest service. She didn't want it to become a museum. She wanted it to stay alive, stay real, stay true to what it had always been, a place where dreams and reality intersected over coffee and conversation. One particularly meaningful evening, Maya received a call from a young woman named Destiny who was cleaning offices in Chicago, Destiny had seen the documentary and reached out through the foundation, not asking for money or connections, but just wanting to know how Maya had. Kept going when everything seemed hopeless. They talked for 3 hours, Maya sitting in her beautiful home recording studio while Destiny took her break in a supply closet. "I write songs while I vacuum," Destiny confessed. "Sometimes I pretend the hum of the machine is accompaniment." "Is that crazy?" Maya laughed, remembering her own makeshift concerts performed for mops and empty chairs. "That's not crazy. That's practice. That's staying ready for when your moment comes. Keep writing, keep singing, keep believing. And send me those songs when you're ready. Not because I can make you famous, but because your art deserves to be heard, even if it's just by one person who understands." The conversation with Destiny reminded Maya of something important she had started to forget in the whirlwind of success. Fame wasn't the goal, connection was. The reason her music resonated wasn't because she had a technically perfect voice or because she fit some industry standard of beauty or marketability. It was because she sang about real experiences in a way that made other people feel less alone in their struggles. Every award, every sold-out show, every milestone was meaningless compared to the messages she received from people who said her music had helped them through their darkest moments. The widow who played Silver Threads and Golden Memories at her husband's funeral. The immigrant who found comfort in Maya's songs about feeling caught between two worlds. The teenager working fast food to support her siblings who saw possibility in Maya's journey. As her career evolved, Maya made deliberate choices to stay connected to those roots. She insisted on keeping ticket prices affordable, always reserving a section of seats at every concert for service industry workers who could attend for free with a pay stub. She recorded albums in unconventional locations, one in a closed diner during overnight sessions, another in a community center in her old neighborhood in Alabama. She collaborated with artists who were still working day jobs, refusing to let the industry tell her they weren't professional enough. When her label initially resisted, worried about the impact on her brand, Maya reminded them that her brand was authenticity. "The day I become too important to sing with a janitor who writes, 'Beautiful songs' is the day I stop being the artist James discovered in that diner," she told them firmly. The 10-year anniversary of her discovery brought unexpected reflection. Maya found herself back in Los Angeles after a world tour, sitting in her mansion's kitchen at 3 a.m, unable to sleep. She thought about the girl she had been, so tired she could barely stand, so broke she counted pennies for bus fare, so dejected she had almost given up on music entirely. That girl would be amazed by the life Maya now lived, but would she recognize her? Would she understand the choices Maya had made, the compromises, the moments when staying true to herself had meant disappointing others? Maya pulled out her phone and scrolled through old photos from her diner days, images her roommates had taken when she wasn't paying attention. In them, she saw exhaustion but also determination, poverty but also richness of spirit. She saw someone who had no idea her life was about to change but who was showing up anyway, doing the work anyway, singing anyway. That contemplation led to Maya's most personal album yet, titled Midnight Shift. Each song corresponded to an hour of a typical overnight shift, from the 11 p.m. exhaustion of arriving at work to the 7 a.m. relief of heading home as the world woke up. She wrote about the peculiar intimacy of 2 a.m., when defenses were down and strangers told their life stories over pancakes. She captured the 4 a.m. desperation when the body screamed for sleep, but bills demanded wakefulness. She celebrated the 5 a.m. camaraderie of workers who became family because they were the only ones who understood that particular brand of tired. The album was recorded with minimal production, often just Maya and a guitar or piano, because she wanted listeners to feel like they were sitting across from her in an empty diner, sharing secrets in the fluorescent half-light. Critics initially didn't know what to make of Midnight Shift. It wasn't the big, bold follow-up expected from someone of Maya's stature. There were no obvious radio singles, no collaborations with other superstars, no songs designed for stadium sing-alongs. But the public understood immediately. The album debuted at #1 and stayed there for 12 weeks. More importantly, it sparked a cultural conversation about the invisible workforce that kept society running while others slept. Night shift workers from every industry shared their stories on social media with the hashtag #MidnightShift. Hospitals started playing Maya's song 4 a.m. Angels to honor their overnight nurses. 24-hour restaurants adopted Coffee at Dawn as an unofficial anthem. The album won Album of the Year, but for Maya, the real victory was in the connections it created. The success of Midnight Shift also brought unexpected challenges. Some accused Maya of poverty tourism, of romanticizing struggles she no longer faced. Others said she was exploiting her past for profit, that she had lost the right to claim those experiences once she became wealthy. Maya listened to these criticisms seriously, understanding they came from real pain and frustration about inequality and representation. She responded not with defensiveness but with action, using the album's proceeds to fund a program providing free mental health services for night shift workers. She also made a point of amplifying other voices from that world, using her platform to showcase artists who were still living the experiences she now sang about from a distance. "I can't pretend I'm still that girl cleaning tables," she said in one interview, "but I can honor her, and I can make sure others in her position are heard." 5 more years passed, bringing more albums, more tours, more accolades. Maya expanded her work beyond music, producing a television series about artists working in the service industry, each episode following a different person navigating the challenge of pursuing their passion while paying their bills. She wrote a memoir, with all proceeds going to the Midnight Dreams Foundation. She even opened a small venue in Los Angeles called The Corner Booth, designed specifically for showcasing emerging talent. The venue had one rule: performers had to have a day job. It became the most sought-after stage in the city, with established artists begging to do surprise appearances just to be part of that raw, authentic energy. But perhaps Maya's most significant contribution was less tangible than awards or venues or foundations. It was the shift in how people thought about talent and success. Her story had become a cultural touchstone, referenced whenever someone wanted to argue that potential existed everywhere, that circumstances didn't determine capability. Parents told their children about Maya when they felt discouraged. Teachers used her journey to inspire students who didn't fit traditional molds. Employers started looking at their workforce differently, wondering what hidden gifts might be walking their halls. It wasn't that everyone who cleaned tables was secretly a star. That was never the point. The point was that everyone deserved to be truly seen and heard, that dignity and dreams weren't reserved for the privileged few. 20 years after that night at Rosie's Diner, Maya stood once again in the spot where she had been mopping when James heard her sing. The diner had been renovated several times over the years, but that corner remained unchanged at her request. Now, 60 years old, with gray threading through her hair and lines earned from both laughter and tears mapping her face, Maya looked around the empty restaurant. It was 2 a.m., and she had come here after another sold-out show, needing to ground herself in the place where everything had started. Frank had long since retired, but his daughter now ran the diner, maintaining its tradition as a haven for dreamers working the late shift. A young man was mopping nearby, earbuds in, lost in his own world. Maya watched him for a moment, seeing herself in his tired movements, the way he found rhythm in the repetitive work. She walked over and gently tapped his shoulder. He pulled out his earbuds, eyes widening as he recognized her. "Miss Thompson. Maya. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here. I'll get you some coffee." She stopped him with a gentle hand on his arm. "What were you listening to?" she asked. He looked embarrassed. "My own stuff. I make beats on my phone during breaks. It's nothing special." Maya smiled. "Can I hear it?" For the next hour, they sat in the corner booth while he played his music, electronic compositions that painted pictures of late-night Los Angeles, the city that never sleeps seen through the eyes of someone working while others played. "This is brilliant," Maya told him honestly. "The way you capture the loneliness and the energy, the exhaustion and the electricity, it's really something special." She pulled out her phone and texted someone. Within minutes, she had connected him with a producer who specialized in electronic music. "I'm not saying this will change your life tonight," she said carefully, But someone should hear this besides just you and these empty tables. Keep making music. Keep working your shift if you need to. But don't stop creating. Promise me that." The young man nodded, tears in his eyes, clutching his phone like it was suddenly precious beyond measure. As Maya left the diner that night, she looked back to see him mopping with renewed energy, and she knew the cycle would continue. Not because everyone would become famous, but because the act of creation itself was sacred, whether performed in stadiums or in the small hours of the morning when the world was quiet. In her later years, Maya became something of an elder stateswoman in the music industry, but she wore that title differently than most. She didn't retreat to mansions and exclusive events. Instead, she could be found at laundromats with good acoustics, at bus stops where street musicians played, at community centers where kids learned instruments on donated equipment. She became known for showing up unannounced at small venues, paying the cover charge like anyone else, and sitting in the back to listen to whoever was brave enough to share their art. Sometimes she left without saying anything, just another face in the crowd. Other times, if something truly moved her, she would approach the artist afterward with the same words James had once said to her: "You don't belong here. You belong on bigger stages. Let me help." The documentary about Maya's life was updated for the 20th anniversary of her discovery, now including not just her journey but the stories of all the artists she had helped discover over the years. The web of connections was staggering. From Maya to Marcus the poet to the spoken-word artist Marcus had mentored who went on to win a Pulitzer. From Maya to Elena, the painter, to the art students Elena now taught for free in her studio. From Maya to Destiny in Chicago, who had indeed sent her songs and was now touring internationally, always opening her shows with the story of the phone call she had made from a supply closet. Each thread led to more threads, creating a tapestry of dreams realized and dreams still in progress. But the most powerful moment in the updated documentary wasn't about success. It was footage from a security camera at a gas station in rural Tennessee, grainy and silent, showing an exhausted woman in a cashier's uniform dancing alone during the 3 a.m. lull, moving to music only she could hear. The footage had gone viral after someone recognized the raw talent in her movement and tracked her down. She hadn't become famous. She was still working at that gas station, but she had started teaching dance classes at the local community center, had choreographed for the high school musical, had found ways to let her art live alongside her responsibilities. Maya had seen the footage and sent her a simple message: "Keep dancing. The world needs your movement, whether it knows it or not." That became Maya's final album title: Keep Singing, Keep Dancing, Keep Creating. It was a collaboration with 50 different artists, all of whom were still working day jobs while pursuing their art. Each track was recorded in their actual workplaces. A song recorded in a hospital break room, a guitar piece played in an empty office building, a vocal performed in a school cafeteria after hours. The album was Maya's love letter to everyone who created in the margins, in the spaces between survival and dreams. It was released for free on all platforms, Maya covering all costs personally, because she wanted to remove even the smallest barrier between the music and the people who needed to hear it. The album's release concert was held simultaneously in 24 diners across America, all streaming to each other, creating a network of late-night workers and dreamers connected by music. Maya performed at Rosie's, of course, but she wasn't the headliner. That honor went to the newest crop of Midnight Dreams Foundation artists, kids who had been babies when Maya was discovered, now carrying forward the tradition of finding beauty in struggle, of making art in the spaces where art wasn't supposed to exist. As midnight struck and the concert began, Maya looked around at the faces illuminated by phone screens and stage lights, and she saw herself in every one of them. Tired but hopeful, worn but unwilling to give up, working the midnight shift in every sense of the phrase. James, now in his 80s but still sharp, sat in his old booth, tears streaming down his face as he watched what his simple act of listening had become. "You know what the real magic was?" he said to Maya during a break between songs. "It wasn't that I discovered you. It's that you were already singing. You were already complete. You didn't need me to make you an artist. You needed me to recognize what you already were. And now look, hundreds of people learning that same lesson, that they don't need permission to be who they are." Maya hugged him tightly, this man who had changed her life by simply paying attention, by choosing to see potential where others saw only a tired waitress. As the concert ended and the various diners began signing off, Maya stood for one final song. She chose not one of her hits, not one of the songs that had won awards or topped charts, but the simple melody she had been humming that night 20 years ago when everything changed. No words this time, just the tune, hummed softly into the microphone. Across 24 locations, hundreds of voices joined her, humming along, creating a harmony that spoke of shared understanding, mutual support, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to let circumstances define their potential. The sound was imperfect, untrained voices finding their way to each other across miles and time zones, but it was beautiful in its imperfection, authentic in its rawness, powerful in its simplicity. When the last note faded, Maya set down the microphone and picked up a mop that someone had left by the stage. As the cameras rolled and the audience watched in surprised silence, she began cleaning the floor of Rosie's diner, moving with the same rhythm she had found 20 years ago when she thought no one was watching. But this time, she knew the truth. Someone is always watching. Someone is always listening. Someone is always ready to recognize the extraordinary in the ordinary. The only question is whether we'll keep singing, keep dancing, keep creating while we wait for that moment, or whether we'll let the world convince us we're just cleaning tables. "Never stop," Maya said softly as she mopped, her words picked up by the microphone and broadcast to all 24 locations. Whatever your art is, whatever your dream is, never stop. Sing while you clean, dance while you cook, write while you wait, paint while you rest. Create in the corners, in the margins, in the moments between moments. Not because someone might discover you, but because the art itself is the discovery. You discovering yourself over and over in every note, every word, every movement, that's the real magic. That's the real success. Everything else, the fame, the fortune, the recognition, that's just one possible outcome. But the art itself, that's the reason. That's always been the reason. The documentary ended with a montage of people around the world working their jobs while creating their art. A surgeon humming while operating, a teacher rapping lessons to empty classrooms, a farmer painting sunsets on the side of his barn, a mother singing lullabies that could heal the world if the world would only listen. The final shot was of Rosie's diner at dawn, empty except for one new employee, a young woman wiping down tables while singing softly to herself, unaware that her manager was standing in the doorway, frozen in place, tears in his eyes, reaching for his phone to record what he was hearing. The screen faded to black with text that read, "Someone is always listening. Keep singing." Maya's story became more than just an inspiration. It became a movement. The phrase, "she was cleaning tables," became shorthand for recognizing potential in unexpected places, for understanding that talent doesn't always come in expected packages. Business schools taught case studies about James's decision to stop and listen. Music programs included courses on the Maya method, of maintaining authenticity while navigating success. Sociologists studied the midnight dreams effect of how her story had changed perceptions of service workers across industries. But for Maya herself, the legacy that mattered most was simpler. Somewhere, right now, someone was creating art while working a job that paid the bills, and they knew they weren't alone. In her final interview, given on her 70th birthday while sitting in that same corner booth at Rosie's diner, Maya was asked what advice she would give to her younger self, the girl who had been cleaning tables that fateful night. She thought for a long moment, then smiled. "I would tell her that she's already enough, that the singing itself is the success, that whether anyone hears her or not, whether her life changes or not, the fact that she keeps singing while she cleans is an act of rebellion, an act of hope, an act of faith. I would tell her that she's not cleaning tables. She's building a stage, one shift at a time. And one night, when she least expects it, the whole world will become her audience. Not because she was discovered, but because she never stopped being who she was meant to be. The interview ended, but Maya stayed in the diner until closing time, listening to the young artist performing on the small stage, a kid whose voice cracked on the high notes but whose passion was undeniable. When he finished, embarrassed by his imperfections, Maya stood and applauded. "That crack in your voice," she said, "that's where the light gets in. That's where the truth lives. Don't you dare polish that away." She handed him her card, not a business card, just a simple note that said, "Keep singing. Someone is always listening. M." The boy clutched it like a treasure, not knowing that in 10 years he would be accepting his own Grammy. Telling the story of the night, a legend told him his imperfections were his strengths. And so the story continues, not ending but evolving, each discovered artist discovering others, each recognition creating ripples of possibility. In diners and hospitals, in offices and factories, in schools and stores, people are singing while they work, dancing while they wait, creating while they survive. They know now what Maya always knew but needed James to confirm, that they don't belong where they are. They belong on stages, in galleries, in concert halls, in all the places where art is celebrated. But until they get there, they'll keep creating where they are, transforming ordinary spaces into sacred venues where miracles happen every day, usually when no one is watching, occasionally when exactly the right person is. The title of Maya's story has become a prophecy, repeated with different names in different places. He was stocking shelves, then a producer overheard him, rapping, and changed his life. She was driving a bus, then a passenger filmed her, poetry, and changed her life. They were guarding a building, then someone noticed their sketches and changed their life. Each story different in its details but identical in its essence. Talent recognized, dreams validated, lives transformed not by magic but by the simple act of one person truly seeing another. And at the heart of every story, the same truth Maya learned that night at Rosie's diner. We are all more than our circumstances suggest. We are all one moment of recognition away from becoming who we were always meant to be. The only question is whether we'll keep singing until that moment arrives. She was cleaning tables. Then a CEO overheard her singing and changed her life. It had started as her story, but it had become everyone's story, a reminder that extraordinary exists in ordinary places. The dreams don't die, but sometimes just wait tables until their moment comes. That somewhere, someone is always listening for the sound of a soul refusing to be silenced by circumstance. And in diners and offices and hospitals around the world, people are singing while they work, knowing now that the singing itself is the miracle. The recognition is just the echo. And the real success is in never stopping, never surrendering, never forgetting that they are artists whether the world knows it yet or not.